Okay, picking up where I left off last time, I ran into a bit of a situation where my rig shrunk down like this. Now, hopefully, everyone's file works okay and they shouldn't run into this problem. Something like this is a little bit more rare. That being said, I have seen this happen once or twice. So if you're in a situation where this happens, you'll notice that we were able to put the bone structure back the way it was by scaling all these parts. And again, I put this at exactly 30.5. It might be bigger or smaller for other people depending on the size of their rig, but this seems to work out pretty nicely. So if you go back to your particular controller, and by the way, the name of the controllers that we have is called character2_control reference. That's basically the other part of this. You need to scale this the same size too. So it's going to look nasty for a second, I ain't going to lie to you, but if you put the scale at 30.5 by 30.5 by 30.5, it should put everything back into place, and yeah, everything looks okay now. So that is pretty awesome. I would still give it a bit of a look just to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on, but I think overall it is working nicely. Again, you'll have to take a look at the outliner for this. So again, to basically fix the issue that I had to change the character. If for everyone else it should be 1_reference, and make sure that the scale is 30.5, 30.5, 30.5, and the character 1 control reference. It's 2 for me because this is my second model. 30.5, 30.5, 30.5, and everything looks like it's working okay. In fact, I gave it a little bit of a test to see what would happen if I turned off the control rig, and the bones, the important parts, they're still staying in place, and that's a good thing. So everything here is pretty much set. Although when you're not doing anything or when you're about to save, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just turn on your control rig just to keep everything in its place. So just to be on the safe side, I am going to save this as rig 3. Because it looks like everything's working out okay. Okay, now just the last parts I wanted to get into is just the last bones, because again, those are elements that we do need to kind of look at. The area that everyone is going to need is for your eyes. Now, I usually recommend people put bones in the actual eyes themselves. The reason why I recommend this is because when you do put in the actual controllers here, when you put the joints in here, you'll be able to use that as your main element for rotations. Also, I found that this is helpful too, because if any of you do decide to go beyond Maya, possibly use this for a game design or something like that, if you just have elements attached, it doesn't seem to work out so well. But if you put them in as bones, they should work out just fine. So in short, it's just being looking out for the future. So I'm going to, once again, turn off the visibility for my hair. Okay. And I'm going to make bones specifically for the eyes themselves. So for this, what I'm going to do, or what I find usually helps, is I'm just going to make 2 joints for myself. Now, you may have to do this for multiple elements, you might not, but once again, going into my modeling, rigging, skeleton, create joints, I'm going to just create 2 joints side by each other. Now, they are a little bit on the big side, so that's kind of one of those weird size changes. If it ends up being a problem, you could always turn down the joint size. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm actually okay with what I have here. This will actually help me a little bit more than hurt. And what I'm going to do here is I am actually going to get rid of one of these joints. In this case, it's probably just going to be this one. And I'm going to use this joint as the method to control the actual eye itself. So if necessary, and it might be necessary, just select one of the eyes and just go to show. I say select view selected. Oop. Don't forget to select the actual joint itself. And I'm just going to take this joint over here, go to my side view, and just try to put this in the middle the best I can. Yep, there we go. Bring this up as well. And then go to my front view and do the same thing. Just move this dead in the center. Excellent. So that looks like it should work out just fine. Okay. Then I'm going to bring back everything. I'm going to call this LTI. I'm going to basically take this joint and I'm going to use the mirror option to basically bring it to the other side. Now here's a neat little trick. If you go to the skeleton, go to mirror joints, hit the settings box. Again, you already know about the YZ axis, but here's a neat little thing. The reason why I chose to name it LTI is I can actually have my search for any text that basically is in the name and change it from LT to RT. In other words, my left eye, once I hit apply, goes to the other side and gets named properly. So I didn't have to worry about any kind of movement or change. Maya basically does all the work for me, which is pretty awesome. Okay, but I do need to put this on the skull. So I'm going to select both the eyes. I'm going to temporarily turn off my control rig. Select the skull, that part's important. And I'm going to do this one at a time. So I'm basically selecting one of my eyes, selecting the skull, hitting P, and it attaches immediately. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the other eye. Select the eye, hold Shift, select the skull, hit P, and bam. So the eyes animation I'm going to have to animate differently, but at least, and it's always good to test this out, at least now, if I was to move my character around, this goes with it. And that's kind of the important part. So, if anyone does have a character with longer hair or longer eyes, you would basically work in a similar fashion to basically make that work. Now, I wouldn't recommend getting too crazy for your first character, if you can help it. But if you do need to put in an extra element or two, say for example, I remember a couple people had some clothing that potentially could have been a problem. Well, what I can do is just make some test clothing. I'm going to save what I have first. So pretty much this is actually rig ready. Because my character's eyes are done, and that was the last thing I had. Oop. Because let's see, maybe more human IK ready. And I'm going to just make something temporary here, just so that I can prove my point. Before that, so I'm just making something again very quickly. So let's say that our character has a dress for two sides. Almost reminds me of one of the Final Fantasy designs right over here. There we are. Now, hopefully yours are put a little bit nicer than mine, but this is just something I wanted to make very quickly for the demonstration purposes. And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to use a connect. To make this fast. Okay, this should work. Okay, so if a person wanted to make some extra joints, say for the dress or something like that. Now, please bear in mind, this is only if you have an extra element for the head or hair, would you even consider doing something like this. If you don't have anything like this, don't worry about it. But if you do, again, you'd start off with the create joint option. You'd either go to your front view or side view, depending on which works better. And you need a joint from the starting spot, which is be over here. And I usually recommend having at least one edge be in between each section. Sweet cupcakes, that's a really big joint. Okay, and then when you get to the last part, you right click, and boom, I'm done. Okay, now for the sake of time, I'm just going to make the skeleton for the other side. So just going to go to the mirror joint, and that should make the joints on the other side like that. So the joints should match up with my dress of sorts. Again, just want to make sure you have at least one edge loop between each of the joints. You shouldn't need too many. In fact, this might be way overkill. And but yes, this still should work out okay, at least for this demonstration. But once I'm ready and I feel that my bones are done, I can once again go to my control rig, turn off my my controller temporarily. And this is something I didn't show before, but I'm going to show now, is I can actually take both those joints and parent them simultaneously. So I'm good there. Then I turn on my control rig just to make sure everything is working out okay, which it is. And now, if I was to move down, these bones go with it. Just make sure you don't name your bones anything that already exists. Try to keep your bones very specific to your purposes. But again, it's just kind of nice that I have those extra elements here. I'm actually tempted to keep these, but in terms of demonstration I'm doing later, this is definitely going to get in the way. But hopefully this gives you an idea of if you need to put in extra joints, this is how you can do it. This method also works for the hair. Don't go too crazy with adding too many joints for now. Just one or two extra joints in very specific spots should be helpful. If any of you do need some help in some recommendations, I could definitely take a look at what you have and draw out areas where your bones could be. So that's pretty much all the stuff I wanted to show for bones for now. The next lecture is going to get into skinning so that you guys can start with that. So we'll end it tonight. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties we had before, but it is good that we were able to fix it. So if anyone runs into that situation themselves, they should hopefully be able to fix it with little problem. But again, we're going to stop this at this point and see you on the next video.